My name is Ethan. I used to believe there were clear moments in life, obvious points where things fall apart, like a slammed door or a shouted insult. But that's not how it really happens. The truth ends quietly with a message on a screen, and the sound of your own heart slowing down as everything shifts beneath your feet. We were at Charlotte Douglas International Airport, sitting side by side in a terminal filled with sleepy travelers and flickering flight boards. Our layover was 2 hours, just long enough to get bored, not long enough to get comfortable. Cassie was beside me, her legs crossed, thumbing through her phone. I remember the scent of her perfume, something subtle and floral that didn't belong to her usual collection. Something new. I'd noticed it earlier that week in Savannah, but hadn't said anything. Savannah had been her idea. A family trip, she'd called it. Just the two of us. We hadn't taken one in years. She said we needed to reconnect, that we'd been too busy, too distant. She'd laughed when I brought up my concerns about time off, money, house repairs. "We'll figure it out," she said. "Just be present." That phrase echoed in my head as I stood on that quiet beach 2 days earlier, watching her take selfies in the wind, her scarf flapping like some luxury magazine ad. I remember thinking she looked beautiful. I remember thinking, maybe we still had time. But time isn't a gift. It's a countdown. At gate B6, Cassie looked calm, relaxed. Her new scarf was folded neatly in her lap, and her coat was draped over her suitcase. Her thumb moved in slow, practiced motions across the screen of her phone. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't frowning. Just engaged. I wasn't trying to look. I swear that. I wasn't trying to spy or pry or dig for anything. But sometimes, the world rips itself open right in front of you. The message lit up in plain view. No attempt to hide it. No screen tilt. No hesitation. It was from someone saved as J. Her message read, "He didn't even realize I'm no longer his wife." That was it. Not, "I'm thinking of leaving him." Not, "I'm unsure about us." No metaphor. No cushion. Just finality. I read it 3 times. I blinked. I glanced up at her. She hadn't flinched. She kept scrolling. And in that moment, with people eating pretzels around me and gate agents laughing over a loudspeaker, I felt something in my chest go silent. It didn't feel like a punch. Felt like space. Like standing on a frozen lake and hearing the first crack beneath your feet. She didn't even try to delete it. She didn't glance sideways to see if I was looking. It wasn't a mistake. It was indifference. That was the part that hurt. I turned my head slowly and looked at the window, watching a baggage cart roll past in the distance. Somewhere in the background, a child cried about a juice box, and an elderly couple argued over which gate their flight was at. Everything around me kept moving, as if the world hadn't noticed that mine had stopped. We sat in silence for another 10 minutes. I asked her if she wanted anything from the kiosk. She said no without looking up. Her voice was light, casual, as if nothing had happened. As if the words she just typed weren't a G*NSH*T to the soul. I stood and walked to the far end of the terminal. Pretended to browse magazines I'd already seen. I picked up a bottle of water and paid with shaky hands. I didn't go back right away. I needed air, but there were no windows that opened. No doors to step through. Just the hum of recycled airport oxygen and the dry sting behind my eyes that I refused to let spill over. When I finally walked back, she was watching a video on mute. Something funny, probably. Her lips curled slightly, the ghost of a smirk resting there like a knife edge. I sat down beside her, slowly, like someone sitting next to a stranger in a theater. She didn't acknowledge me, and I didn't say a word. But everything was different now. The strange, the moment you realize you're just background noise in someone else's life. Placeholder. A default setting they've grown bored of. I thought back to Savannah. The soft jazz playing in the hotel lobby. The way she stayed too long in the bathroom before dinner. Her phone always upside down on the nightstand. I thought it was stress. I thought it was distance. I thought we were healing. But the healing was a lie. It had been over long before that flight. I just hadn't noticed. Until that screen. Until that message. Until that moment where nothing exploded, yet everything was already ash. After Charlotte, After the layover, after the message that peeled the skin off everything I thought I knew, I didn't confront her. I didn't ask. I didn't say her name with the weight I was feeling. Instead, I let silence do what anger couldn't. It made her wonder, because that's what Cassie feared most. Not yelling, not accusations. She feared stillness. She feared becoming invisible. I spent the next few days moving through our house like it was a museum of a marriage that had already ended. Every object seemed staged. Every pillow she fluffed on the couch. Every candle she lit in the bathroom. Every note she left on the fridge. All of it felt like part of a performance I'd been too blind to realize was never about me. She was kind in a mechanical way. Kissed my cheek in the morning. Asked how I slept. Laughed at things I hadn't said. But something was off, and now I finally saw it. Her questions had no wait time. Her eyes never actually met mine. She was on autopilot, gliding above our life like someone too scared to land. Then came the scarf. A thin, silky thing I'd never seen before Savannah. She used to make fun of accessories like that. Said scarves were for people trying too hard to look effortless. And yet there it was, looped perfectly around her neck one morning, the edges embroidered with initials I didn't recognize. I noticed how she adjusted it every time she passed a mirror. How it smelled like jasmine. Something we'd never kept in the house. I didn't ask where it came from. I just watched her wear it like armor. The first shift came with her phone. For 9 years, Cassie never used a lock screen. She said it made things easier. "We have nothing to hide from each other," she once told me. I used to smile when I'd see her photos pop up. Us on hikes, at weddings, even brushing our teeth in hotel rooms, laughing through toothpaste. But now her phone stayed face down. When she texted, she angled the screen toward her knees. One night, as she slept, I tried the old code, our anniversary. Nothing. I didn't try again. Because the moment you test a lock and it doesn't open, you realize the door was never yours to begin with. I started noticing small things. All the overlooked pieces that, once stacked, formed something unmistakable. She came home with flowers one Friday evening. Tulips. Bright, soft pink. She said she saw them at a market and thought of spring. The same tulips I bought her every March for 6 years. Only this time I hadn't. I hadn't bought her flowers in months. Not since she started saying things like, "You don't have to prove anything." That night I found the receipt in the trash. They weren't from a market. They were delivered. The same evening, I noticed something on her car's dashboard. Her GPS was open. Nothing strange about that, until I saw the destination history. There it was, 3 trips logged to an address on the west side of town. Not her mother's. Not her coworkers. A condo complex with a rooftop pool and underground parking. She told me she'd been visiting her mom that week. That they were catching up. "You know how she gets lonely," she said with a smile. Only her mom had texted me earlier, asking when Cassie was coming by again. The scent of unfamiliar cologne clung to her coat when she tossed it over the chair. Not one from a store I knew. Not one I'd worn. It was rich and spiced, the kind of fragrance worn by someone who knows how to hold a room. I asked how her visit went. She said it was fine. I didn't ask anything else. Because by now, asking felt like giving her power. And I had already given enough. The next day, I was working in the study when her laptop chimed. A single notification appeared in the corner of the screen. A confirmation from a yacht rental service. The kind with a private chef, full-day packages, champagne upgrades. The kind we used to joke were for influencers and people pretending to be in love. I stared at the email for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just sat there, quietly cataloging the absurdity of it. A yacht? We had a roof leak she refused to fix. We had student loans we never talked about. But there it was. A 7-hour luxury rental scheduled for the same weekend she claimed she was attending a leadership conference out of state. I closed the laptop without opening the message. I didn't want more details. Not yet. She started spending more time alone after that. Sitting outside at night with a glass of wine. Her screen always dimmed. Her back always to the door. She'd hum to herself sometimes. Softly. Like someone content in a memory they didn't plan on sharing. Then, one afternoon, I noticed her social media had gone private. Cassie, who once tagged me in every photo, now posted filtered images of brunch plates and skyline *TS. No faces, no mentions. When I asked casually why she made her profile private, she shrugged. "Too many bots lately," she said. "Just trying to stay low-key." I nodded. But inside, something settled. Something final. I wasn't living with my wife anymore. I was living with someone playing a role. And I was no longer part of the script. It wasn't just the scarf or the perfume or the flowers or the lies. It was the erasure. The quiet replacement of me with someone she didn't think I'd notice. She wanted the benefit of my silence while living a different life beneath it. But the moment in that airport had changed me. I was no longer searching for proof. I already had all the proof I needed. The thing about betrayal is that once you see it, you start seeing everything. You realize how much of your life has been rewritten behind your back. Not all at once, but quietly, casually, in subtle edits. Deleted names, invented meetings, phantom friends. And the worst part isn't the lies. It's how easily they're told. 2 days after we returned from Savannah, I decided to make a birthday gift for Cassie. Not because I wanted to celebrate her, but because I needed something to do with my hands. Some distraction. Something that would let me pretend I still had a role in this house. She'd be turning 34 in a week. I figured I'd make a photo collage, nothing elaborate. Just a collection of memories from the last decade. I started pulling old images from my cloud archive, scrolling through birthdays, vacations, and anniversaries. Us in Charleston, blurry selfies in hotel mirrors, her asleep in the passenger seat with a book on her chest. That's when I saw the new folder. It hadn't been there before. Titled, Gift in the Bay. The cloud automatically synced all devices connected to our shared network. Phones, tablets, cameras, unless you changed the default. Cassie never bothered with tech settings. I opened it. The first photo stopped me cold. She was standing on the back of a yacht, one hand gripping the polished rail, the other holding a champagne flute. She wore that same silk scarf, the one from Savannah, tied over her hair like some Hollywood starlet. Wind whipping her dress, her head tilted back in laughter. But she wasn't alone. A man stood behind her, arms around her waist. Only his body was visible, tall, fit, wearing a navy sports jacket. His head was just out of frame. But the next photo revealed more. She sat beside him at a small table on the deck. 2 glasses of wine, a cheese plate, her legs crossed toward him. His face turned just slightly, and that's when I saw it. The reflection in her glass. Distorted, but unmistakable. James, her old college friend. The one who'd moved back to town last fall. The one she insisted I had nothing to worry about. The same James who'd commented on her posts with inside jokes. The same James she bumped into at the coffee shop by accident. The same James whose name I found in her contacts under just the letter J. The timestamp on the photo was 4 days before we left for Savannah. The same day she told me she was at a spa with her friend Veronica. The same day I made her favorite dinner and left a card on the bed saying, "Thanks for choosing us." I remember that night too clearly. I was in the kitchen grilling salmon and baking a lemon cake. She came home late, hair still damp, saying she'd fallen asleep during a massage. I kissed her forehead and said she looked peaceful. And the whole time, she had seen wind in her lungs and someone else's arms around her. There were more photos, different angles, close-ups of her laughing, toasting, leaning against the railing as the sun dipped behind her. In one, she was barefoot, her shoes kicked off beside a basket of fruit. Her expression was pure ease, the kind you don't fake, the kind you don't share with someone you've grown tired of. None of the pictures showed her looking sad, or guilty, or hesitant. She didn't seem torn or conflicted. She looked free, as if I had never existed. I didn't close the folder. I didn't delete it. I just sat there staring, letting every image burn its way into me. Not to punish myself, but to preserve the truth. Because now I needed truth more than comfort. Later that night, I sat on the patio while she scrolled through her phone across from me, sipping herbal tea like nothing was broken. She asked if I'd remembered to buy light bulbs. I said I hadn't gotten around to it. She shrugged, said she'd pick them up herself. Then she went back to her screen, smiling at something I couldn't see. I watched her, not with anger, not even with sorrow, just with awareness. I was watching a stranger in my home. The next day, I tested something. I left my phone unlocked on the table with a fake message draft open. It said, "Met someone. I think I'm done pretending." I went into the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes, watching from the reflection in the microwave door. She walked by, paused, glanced down. I saw the moment her eyes landed on the screen. Her body stiffened. She looked toward the hallway, then back at the screen. Then she picked up her mug and walked away. She didn't ask, didn't bring it up. And I realized something then. She wasn't afraid of hurting me. She was afraid of losing control. She didn't love me. She just loved being unchallenged. That night, I printed 3 of the yacht photos. Just standard 4x6 prints. I didn't hide them. I tucked them neatly into a book she'd been reading, slid between the pages right around chapter 8. A book about transformation, ironically. A woman reinventing herself after leaving a dull relationship. I never saw her reaction. She didn't mention them. But 2 days later, I found the book on the bottom shelf of the guest room. The photos were gone. Not in the trash. Not in her purse. Just gone. Cassie became quieter after that. Not in an awkward way but measured. Calculating. She stopped making jokes at dinner. She didn't ask about my day. But she watched me more closely. Her eyes lingering too long. Like someone trying to gauge whether the dam had cracked. But there was no dam anymore. There was just space. And a man who had seen the truth. Pixel by pixel, reflection by reflection. And had nothing left to protect. There's a strange peace that comes when you finally stop pretending. Not the kind of peace that feels warm or safe, but the kind that's clean. Cold. Like the first breath after being underwater too long. That's what I felt after the photos. Not rage. Not despair. Just a quiet end to the illusion I'd been maintaining for far too long. Cassie kept moving as if nothing had happened. Her days followed the same pattern. Morning coffee with almond milk, yoga mat unrolled but barely used, a new playlist on loop as she worked in her home office with the door closed. She'd still ask if I needed anything from the store, still text me, "Drive safe," when I left for work. It was also practiced, like she was checking boxes to maintain plausible deniability. She didn't know I had stopped playing. No confrontation. No emotional plea. I didn't corner her in the kitchen with questions. Didn't leave printed emails on her pillow. Didn't follow her car or hack her passwords. I simply disappeared from the script. I became silent. And that silence, oddly enough, made her louder. First, it was small. She'd ask me twice if I wanted dinner, like maybe I hadn't heard her. She started leaving her office door open again. She began dressing better, not for me, but for someone who might be watching. Red lipstick made a return. Her heels clicked louder than usual in the hallway, like punctuation marks after every unspoken sentence. But I wasn't interested in reading between her lines anymore. I'd sit at the dining table in silence. She'd scroll through her phone across from me, eyes darting up occasionally, searching for a reaction, comment, a question, a flicker of anything. She got nothing. She started asking directly. "What's wrong with you lately?" she said one night, not looking up from her bowl of quinoa and roasted vegetables. "You've been off." I shrugged. "You don't talk," she continued. "You don't touch me. Are you mad? Is this about something?" Still, I said nothing. Cassie hated stillness more than she hated guilt. Guilt she could rationalize. But silence? Silence was a mirror she couldn't control. A few nights later, she came into the bedroom after midnight, clearly having had a few drinks. Her makeup was smudged, and her perfume hit me before she even entered. She dropped her purse on the floor and sat at the edge of the bed. "Are you going to say anything?" she asked, softer this time. I reached over, turned off the bedside lamp, and lay back down. She sat there a moment longer, unmoving, then left. I heard her heels echo down the hallway and the door to the guest room shut. She didn't sleep beside me again for a week. But even then, I didn't feel alone. Because the man she betrayed, the one who would have begged, shouted, clung to the fragments, he was gone too. Cassie's frustration turned tactical. She started telling me about things she never used to share. "Oh, Rachel invited me to a gallery opening," she said one morning. "Some of her friends will be there. All women, don't worry." Another day, she mentioned an old ex texting her out of the blue. "I told him I'm married, obviously," she added quickly, eyes flicking toward mine. I nodded each time. No emotion. No spark of jealousy. No reaction to feed on. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to care. But I had already buried the version of myself who did. One evening, she slammed a drawer in the kitchen. "Do you even feel anything anymore?" she snapped. "You think being cold makes you strong? It just makes you a coward." I looked up from my laptop. "Then leave." That stopped her. She blinked. Once, twice, like she hadn't planned for that move. "You want me to?" she asked, voice smaller now. "I want you to do what you've already been doing," I said calmly. "Just stop pretending it's for me." She didn't reply. She opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and left the room. The next morning, she made pancakes. Her apology food. Blueberries, even. No words, just a plate waiting for me on the table. But I wasn't hungry. I picked up my keys and left for work early. That afternoon, she texted, "Are we okay?" I read it twice, then locked my phone and went back to my meeting. That night, she tried a different tactic. She walked into the living room in one of the old dresses I used to love. The one from our 5th anniversary dinner in Charleston. She smiled in the mirror, checked her earrings, asked, "Do you remember this one?" I said, "You looked happiest in it back then." Then I turned off the TV and went upstairs. No cruelty, no sarcasm, just truth. She didn't wear the dress again. That weekend, she stayed out until 2 a.m. I heard the garage door rumble shut and her heels echo through the hallway. She paused outside our bedroom, then kept walking. When I went downstairs in the morning, her purse was on the kitchen counter. Unzipped, half open. Deliberately so. Inside was a receipt from a rooftop bar in the city. 2 drinks. 1 appetizer. Not the kind of place you go alone. She wanted me to see it. She wanted drama. But I gave her nothing. Because I knew what this was now. A performance spiraling without a script. And I had walked off stage. Cassie started coming home later. It began with soft excuses. Long meeting. Ran into an old friend. We lost track of time. I didn't respond. Didn't ask who or where or why. She used to volunteer details I never requested. Now she offered them too eagerly, like a suspect trying to stay ahead of suspicion. It almost made me laugh. Almost. One Thursday, she arrived after midnight, keys jingling as she dropped them onto the entryway table like punctuation. I was sitting in the dark, watching the streetlight outside flicker against the bare branches of the elm. She didn't notice me right away, just walked in, kicked off her heels, checked her phone. Then she looked up, startled. "Oh, didn't realize you were up," she said. I didn't answer, just watched her brush past me into the kitchen, humming something tuneless. She poured herself a glass of wine, 3rd night in a row, and stood at the counter scrolling through her messages. I wanted to ask her how her evening went. I didn't. She didn't ask how mine had gone either. The next morning, she made pancakes again. She hadn't made them twice in 1 week since our honeymoon. I sat down, took 1 bite, and quietly left the table. She ate the rest alone. Her absence stopped bothering me. In fact, it became a kind of relief. I didn't have to act. I didn't have to pretend to care about her stories or nod along to her rehearsed laughter. The more she pulled away, the easier it became to live inside the silence. At first it felt like punishment, then clarity. One night, she left the house at 6 p.m. wearing a new black dress I hadn't seen before. Open back, just enough shimmer to catch headlights. She said she was going to a party planning committee dinner. I didn't ask what they were planning. She lingered by the door longer than usual, waiting for something. Maybe a reaction. Maybe even a confrontation. I gave her neither. She left without saying goodbye. That night, I sat in the living room, windows open, letting the cold air pour in. It was a clean kind of quiet, the kind that didn't demand explanations. I poured myself a drink, stared at the ceiling, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I missed her. Not her voice, not her touch, not her presence. She texted around midnight, running late. Don't wait up. I didn't. I went to bed, slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, she wasn't there. By noon, still no sign of her. Her car was gone. No messages. No calls. I didn't panic. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that I wasn't part of her plans anymore. Her life had already detached from mine like a ship slipping away from the dock. Ropes cut one at a time. I was just the last tether she hadn't bothered to untie. I checked the cameras. She had left through the garage at 12:43 a.m. and hadn't returned. Hours passed. No word. I made coffee, answered emails, took a walk around the block. Still nothing. By 6 p.m., I received a message. No greeting, no apology. Just staying at Monica's for the night. Don't wait up. Monica had moved to Austin 6 months ago. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I powered off my phone and slid it into the drawer. I didn't reply. When she returned the next evening, nearly 42 hours later, she walked in like it had been an ordinary Sunday. Hair styled, cheeks flushed, coat neatly folded over her arm. No signs of panic. No explanations. She dropped her keys onto the counter and said, "Hey." I looked up from my laptop. "Hi." That's all. She waited, opened the fridge, poured a glass of juice. "You good?" she asked, casual. "Yeah." Another pause. She nodded slowly and left the room. Upstairs, I heard the sound of her zipper. Suitcase, maybe, or a purse. Then the shower turned on. We didn't talk that night. The next morning, I made breakfast for myself. Toast, coffee. The chair across from me stayed empty. She came down eventually, in jeans and a hoodie, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked at the kitchen like it wasn't hers anymore. Sat down, sipped from the mug I didn't pour for her. "I think we need to talk," she said. I nodded, but I didn't offer a conversation. She waited, then stood up and left the room. That's when I knew she wanted me to crack first. She wanted the guilt, the scene, the begging. She wanted to be able to say, "I left because he stopped loving me." But I wouldn't give her that, because it wasn't about love anymore. It was about absence. And absence isn't something you argue about. She disappeared 4 more times in the following weeks. Always the same pattern. Gone overnight, vague excuse, no explanation. Sometimes she left behind an earring on the sink or a receipt from a hotel tucked into her coat pocket. It was never clumsy, never obvious, but never hidden either. She was baiting me, and I didn't bite. I knew what she was doing. She wanted to feel like she had control, like she was the one holding the matches while the house burned. What she didn't realize was, I'd already left the house. I was just waiting for the fire to die out. Cassie had spent years being the center of gravity in our world. Her moods dictated the tone of every room. Her choices rearranged our lives. But now I'd stopped orbiting her. I was grounded, and she didn't know how to float alone. One morning, I woke up and her side of the bed was made. Not slept in. Not even touched. A note sat on the pillow. "Gone for the weekend. Don't text." So I didn't. That weekend, I rearranged the living room, cleaned the closets, donated the clothes she never wore anymore. I boxed up the vacation souvenirs she'd once insisted we frame, the ones from places that apparently meant nothing. When I came across a framed photo of us in San Diego, I turned it around. I didn't throw it away. I just didn't need to see it anymore. Because the truth is, endings don't always arrive with slammed doors or screaming matches. Sometimes they arrive slowly, quietly, one disappearing act at a time. And I had finally stopped chasing ghosts. Cassie began to study me. Her eyes lingered longer. She started hovering by the door when I left, pretending to look for her keys. Once, I caught her glancing at my phone reflection in the microwave. She wasn't looking for evidence of cheating. She was looking for signs of life in me. At dinner, she placed her hand on mine. I didn't pull away. I didn't hold it either. She whispered, "You've changed." I nodded. That was all. Her lips parted, trembling, but no words came. For the first time, she looked afraid. Not of me, but of the hollow space she created. She didn't lose my loyalty. She lost my presence. On her birthday, I sent no flowers, no message, no gift. Instead, I hired a plane. As she sat on a rooftop with friends, a banner flew overhead. "I know." Her friends recorded it, laughed. One tagged her. She came home pale, silent. "What now?" she asked, sitting beside me like a stranger. "Now?" I said. "Nothing." Her lips quivered. I saw it then. Regret, fear, realization. That moment at the airport wasn't just a message. It was the end. Back then, I missed it. But now, I watched it settle in her eyes and felt absolutely nothing.